Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. Did want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 221 with Mason Terra. He is an artist, and on that episode, he came back for the first time since episode 204, talking about basically his performative art, kind of called The Box, where he went into a box and acted essentially as an AI prompt, so people would do drawings and submit them. And as he would do that, he would create the drawings, put it out, did it for 24 hours, stayed in the box the entire time, and he talked about the Azores trip he went on and how he's going back to the Azores to do more artwork. So you can check that episode out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go to YouTube, search The Carroll Connection, or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. We'll set that up, as well as plugging the 5 pillars to creating meaningful life, only available on Amazon. And if you get the book, read it, review it, and then submit the review on Amazon, it goes a long way in the algorithm. So that brings us to today's episode 222 with Ashley Crossman.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Me.
Yeah, of course.
I'm so excited.
And tell everyone kind of who you are and what you're doing currently.
Yeah, so my name is Ashley Crossman, and I own Any Marketing Solutions. It is a digital and social media marketing company where I work with small businesses that need help with their socials, particularly, and also Google Analytics, anything to do with print marketing, and really just helping them analyze what they're spending their money on and how to get across other demographics on social media and how to optimize their digital search results.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, especially nowadays with people using social media, you see so many businesses lacking in that area, not understanding the importance of social media. And I literally made a post today where I kind of, it was a quote from last week's episode, you're either with us or you get left behind. And that was in relation to kind of like AI and stuff we're talking about, but that goes with everything. I used the reference of like TikTok when TikTok became like super popular. It's like, if you're not using these platforms for your benefit, like you're going to get left behind in some aspect. And like, if you're fine with that, you're fine with that. But like, if you're some type of creative or working on stuff, like to use these platforms and utilize like what they're offering, I think is super important. I think it goes in kind of what you were saying there, but and we can get into some of like the AI stuff later in the conversation, but I like to kind of start the podcast talking about family dynamic. And for any new listeners, I always like to talk about like my corny little cliche that I give where if we're talking about a house, the foundation, and we think about your family, that's kind of like the foundation of your life. And I always like to start a podcast talking about that because it gives insight into kind of where you're coming from, and it kind of allows us to build your life story on this episode. So with whatever you're comfortable with, can you go into your family dynamic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Warwick, Rhode Island, and I lived with my sister, my younger brother, my mom, and my stepdad. And um, we went to Wyman Elementary School. We moved around from East Providence, and it was, how can I put it? Complete chaos most of the times because as a mom now of 2 little girls, I don't know how my mother did it with 3 little ones, all 2 years apart. She was a single mother for many, many years, as my dad went to prison when I was 2 years old, my biological dad. And mental health has always played like a huge part in my family. My mom's family has ties with mental health and issues with it. My dad's side as well. And my brother, growing up, he had schizophrenia. So, as you can imagine, being the oldest out of 3 kids who are crazy and running around anyway, and then having an issue like that in the family, with having a mom who was low income, just trying to make ends meet, that was extremely stressful, and it was a lot on my mental health. Um, but what I learned throughout living this, I guess, childhood, some may say it's traumatic. I think everyone has some type of trauma in their childhood that they have to deal with. But while living in that situation, I learned how serious mental health is. And I remember thinking, like, when I first found out that my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia, I said, "Oh, no, he's just doing it for attention. Like, there's no way that he's doing all of this bad stuff." And I just thought that he was a bad kid, just looking for that attention. But as you learn more and more about it and you live through it and live with it, you say to yourself, no, like there's something wrong and this is a huge issue and it's affected me and my family dynamic and also everything that's happened in my life. So I obviously was very stressed living with a brother who had schizophrenia. And I said to myself, I got to get out of Rhode Island. I got to get out. It's too small for me. I need to leave. And I did. And I went to school in North Carolina and I was able to like get away from all of the family, you know, mess that was just clouding my head. But by going through that and by leaving home, I was able to discover one, who I was, and also, wait, even though it's unconventional and chaotic and a crazy childhood, like I miss it. It's a part of me. It's who I am. It's what drives me. It's what makes me feel like I belong. And so I came back up here and I think that I realized, hey, you got so much taken away from you when you were a kid because you had a sibling in the household that needed so much attention. So you know what? Let's try to get this attention back by like coming home and by like just showing like who you've become. And unfortunately, like that's not how life works. And my parents had to continue taking care of my brother for years and years and years. He was homeless at one point, actually for many years, living in a tent and unfortunately, through all of the battles that our family dealt with and that he dealt with, he committed suicide a couple years ago. Actually, 3 weeks after I gave birth to our second daughter. Um, and that was like a huge mental blow. One, going through postpartum, two, dealing with a death of someone that's so close to you. I mean, even though we didn't have the best relationship. A lot of times people with mental health issues don't always keep the relationships that they have. It was still so heartbreaking and life altering, and especially at such a vulnerable part in my life of being a mom again and going through all of those emotions. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of my my family history. Um, but hopefully we get to talk about balance in this episode. And the balance of that is even though I had a really crazy childhood, I ended up turning out with a beautiful family now. And I have a husband who loves me, who supports me. I have two beautiful girls who are healthy, smart. Um, I have a family. My sister, I still am close with her, and I talk with her and her kids and have them over for the holidays. So I think that no matter what happens in people's childhoods, that like the lights can always be turned on, and there's always healing to be made. So I hope that people get from this episode that even though someone like me, a girl who was on welfare, grew up in such a stressful and tough situation, I can turn out to be an entrepreneur. I can turn out to be somebody and to hopefully help the world like it helped me. And a lot of that comes from balance. A lot of it comes from my belief in energies and being able to kind of change the negative energies into positive energies. So hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that throughout the
Yeah,
questions.
and thank you for being willing to share a lot of that stuff, and because obviously a lot of that is personal, and like I said, you didn't have to share all that, but I'm grateful that you did, and you felt comfortable to do that because I think people do need to hear this stuff. And like I was mentioning beforehand, my brother is autistic, and I have um, in my family, my mom is bipolar and has dealt with that um, for a good portion of my like high school adult life, where a lot of that was coming into play, at least diagnosed. And uh, the stigma of how people view others with mental health is so sad, because I remember a lot of the times, like I was mentioning, I play football and stuff in high school, and the way that the town was very like clicky and kind of like judgmental in certain aspects. And she didn't sometimes feel like she could attend my games because she felt like people were going to judge her for having mental health issues. And in some aspects that's maybe not true, but also it is, because like people do judge, and like it's not fair that people will look negatively, and sometimes even your family will look negatively at mental health. And that's kind of a huge reason why I talk about mental health and like promoting that on my platform and making that like the talking point, is because no matter what you go through in life, even if you're on this podcast talking about your life story, that is mental health. Because sharing what you've gone through is like can help others and help people get out of situations that they've gone through. Because you never know like who's dealing with what. Like I would have never known any of that if like I just didn't ask you to do a podcast with me and ask you about your family. Like I could do a podcast and we could talk about trending topics or whatever, and we might never hit that. Versus like actually having a real human conversation with someone, because partially you do like digital marketing and a great business stuff, but like you're a human, like you have human stuff going on in your real life. And that's the stuff that I'm like really like happy and proud of on a platform like this, to that we can talk about stuff like that, because we're trying to like destigmatize the whole mental health aspect of like, let's talk about it, let's get back to this. Because for a long time people didn't want to talk about this, and it's scary that for so many years that this wasn't even a topic for people. And I think it's definitely changed over the last 10, 20 years, where people are speaking on this, or like whether it's in their jobs or even like younger kids focusing on what's important to them and how they have like good mental health. Because if your mental health's all off and you're not there, like you can't be there for the relationships in your life, whether you're attending school or your job or like family, whatever it is. Like if you're not good up here, like everything else is going to crumble very fast. And you mentioned the part about having like people who struggle with mental health sometimes don't always maintain relationships. And I've seen that within my own town, where people struggle with mental health. And as someone who comes from a family that was aware of mental health, aware of autism, all these different things that most people didn't go through, when someone was struggling on social media, like clear as day, it's like, all right, this is a manic episode, or someone's having a mental health breakdown, and you see people supporting it, or like being, "Oh, this dude's weird. Like, what is going on? Why are they saying all this negative stuff?" And it's scary that people are so quick to judge the behavior without trying to actually understand why that's occurring.
Mhm.
And that is something that I'm glad that I've experienced, to have a little bit more sympathy and a little bit more empathy for people that struggle with mental health. Because when you see those things, or you see maybe someone walking on the street doing something a little bit off, that you don't jump to like they're doing crack or doing
Yeah.
something crazy. Like it's there's something actually maybe mental health related. Maybe they don't even know what they're doing. Like they could completely be disassociating. You don't even know. And so many people are quick to just judge and label the negative aspect. And I think hearing story like yours and like being willing to share that is like super important. And like thank you for being willing to like actually do that. Kind of building on this a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about your childhood, and like kind of focus on were there any like sports or like hobbies or things you kind of did to like socialize with other people?
Yeah, so I was never good at sports. I tried soccer when I was 3 years old, and then they made me the goalie, and that was it. I was like, "Nope, this is not my thing." When we put our daughter into soccer, same thing happened. She was liking it. She's like, "Mom, I don't like this running." So, um, I ended up liking dance and ballet, and I eventually got into cheerleading. So I was super into cheerleading, like seventh grade, eighth grade, middle school. We ended up going to like nationals competitions and competing, and I had my whole clique of girlfriends. But the problem was is that cheerleading's expensive, and I remember saying to my mom and my stepdad, like, "Hey guys, guess what? I'm almost 16, and I am going to be able to drive. So you guys don't need to bring me anywhere anymore." And they were like, "Oh, really? Like, how are you gonna get around? Like, what car are you gonna?" I was like, "Oh, I'll use your car." And they're like, "What about when we go to work? Like, you can't just get on our car. You have to be on our insurance." So, it was expected that I go out, get a job, and not be able to choose sports. So even though I was super into cheerleading, seventh grade, eighth grade, by ninth grade, I actually had to make that choice of saying, hey, do you want to be able to do something that is fulfilling and good for your soul, your academics, your future, or are you going to make money and be able to support yourself because your family can't support you without you helping that support yourself and help support them. So that was like definitely a tough pill to swallow, and like realizing, hey, I'm not like other kids. I can't just go and play sports. My family can't afford to go out and you know spend, I think, like softball for Seekonk was like $125. Now what if she switched and she liked soccer the next season, and it was another $125. Like, sometimes families just can't make that happen. So I was one of those families, and I had to choose. And I'm glad that I was able to experience that because it made me, I guess, the person who I am today. And I'm able to, one, appreciate when I am able to do things that I love, like the arts and write and just be creative, because I wasn't always able to express that, due to socioeconomic factors. And I think that there are other kids out there that also experience that. So if they can see me and realize, hey, you know what? Right now it may be hard, but one day I know that not being able to play football or softball or whatever it is going to be worth it because I'm going to get to my goal, and everything's going to turn out okay in the end.
Yeah, you bring up a great point too, because I don't know if I've had this side of the conversation with sports too, of like the affordability aspect of it. I think I might have hit on like I grew up playing baseball, and I think I talked with someone about like how expensive like the sport has gotten. I'm pretty far removed from like that world now, but I can only imagine, obviously, with the cost of everything going up, like youth sports and the way that a lot of parents push that, and like everyone thinks their kid's gonna go pro basically, and like investing into it and going crazy with it instead of just enjoying teaching life lessons. Because part of the reason I like talking about or ask people about sports if they've played any is because I think a lot of the things that I've learned in life started with like sports and being taught, like for football, like whether it's like hard work, dedication, consistency, like there's stuff that I've gained through sports and being social and like having to work as a team instead of being so independent. And I think it's interesting to hear that other side where some people can't even get into the door. Like the barrier to entry is so high with the cost of things that a lot of kids are suffering because they can't get into these activities. And I think that you bring up a great point that we're really isolating a good portion of children from having that experience by not bringing down the cost to get into these sports. And that is a real shame that they're missing out on some of these opportunities to do that. And you you even see that too, like as you get to like high school, where like high school sports, you're not really paying to play some of these high school sports at certain levels. And when we had kids that couldn't play in like youth sports, we're playing in high school now because everything's kind of like the pads and all that stuff are given. And they have such amazing talent. They're like really good. They might not have the fundamentals down yet because they haven't played, but like they couldn't get in because they couldn't afford it, or they didn't have a parent that could bring them to a practice or whatever it may be. And it's kind of sad because like you don't know where they could have been if they had those like 3, 4, 5 years in like youth sports to like work on their fundamentals, and like maybe that could have been a scholarship for them for all we know, but they had the situation that they had and couldn't get in because youth sports is so damn expensive. And that brings up you bring up a great point with that, and I think that's like a whole new perspective on youth sports that needs to be revisited, especially in a lot of these local towns where you could bring and where right now youth sports I feel like is suffering, where like they're not having the amount of numbers in it, and like these like basically pay to play teams, like these travel AAU type like level sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, whatever. you have to pay so much to even get on a team, and you might not even play because like the competition and all this other stuff, and it becomes this whole thing. And these like town leagues start to suffer because no one starts playing these leagues, and those start to go away. And it's interesting to see.
That's happening now,
Yeah.
literally as we speak. Like in Seekonk, we are playing fall ball for softball, or our daughter is, and we didn't have enough players to make 3 teams or 4 teams. So we have to play East Providence every other weekend, and East Providence has to play every Saturday and Sunday. So think about like those kids having to play every Saturday and Sunday. Also, what about the parents who may have nursing jobs or grocery jobs, and they have to then figure out who's going to bring those kids to the 9:30 game or the 11 o'clock game? And fortunately for us, we're able to do that. But there are so many parents out there that can't do that. And over the summer, my daughter did dance camp. And that was a big thing because when I was little, I did ballet, and I asked my mom, like, why did we stop ballet? Oh, those uniforms are really expensive, she said. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay, I get it." But she did it last year with her friends, and this year, our daughter didn't find anyone that she knew in class, so she freaked out. And this had never happened before. This was completely out of character, and I actually had to take her out of the class for that day and say, "Hey, maybe we'll try again tomorrow." And I was so upset. And I remember I was crying, she was crying. He's like, "You guys need to calm down." And it went back to that childhood trauma of, oh my goodness, I would have died to be able to go to dance camp, but Nana couldn't afford to bring me there. And I actually had to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm projecting my feelings onto my child right now. How can we how can we rework this so that one, you feel comfortable enough to be able to go into dance camp tomorrow? So I brought her to the crystal shop and I was like, hey, like we need something for self-confidence. Sure enough, Strawberry Moon, Andrea was awesome and helped her get the crystal she needed. And she went to dance camp, made a new friend. It was great. It was the best experience, but it was such a learning curve for me because, again, going back to mental health, that part of my life was affecting the present part of my life. And I had to take a step back and be like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to let go of and release in order to be able to move on from this experience, and also just to be a better mom and person. So yeah, it was it was a little
It's
wild, but
you bring because like I've definitely heard even like I think I'm in like the Seekonk football groups from when I was a kid, and like I see them struggling to like get people to play, and like and I can imagine it's other sports as well, like you mentioned, and and a lot of those town leagues suffer because these, like I said, AAU leagues are recruiting these people, and like they have like more visibility to like quote unquote better talent.
yeah.
But half the time, you might not even get all the good kids because you can't even afford to get into the damn league, and it's like this whole issue. But anyways, like we could start to build on this a little bit, and I want to go towards like senior year, like high school now, and like start talking to me a little bit about kind of like the path that you want to take, like ready to graduate. Do you go to college? Do you not go to college? Like why? Why not?
Yeah. So, oh man, going back to my pilgrim days, man. I always knew that I wanted to be someone creative. I was always into art. I remember at one point I wanted to go to RISD. But then I said, I don't know, what kind of career I would want to do. I didn't want to be a teacher. And, and then I got into I wanted to be an anchor on the Today Show. That was my dream. I was going to school to be a journalist, a broadcaster, and I soon realized that they have to get up at 3, 4 in the morning. And that is just not for me. You were telling me how you wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym. I cannot do that. That's why being a mother was, I think, such a challenge for me, because you're up at all hours of the night. And it's just something that I knew that I wouldn't enjoy. So I had to I guess, figure out what I wanted to do. And journalism is really what sparked that. So when I was a senior, we had to do what was called, I don't know if they had it when you were in school, but senior projects.
Mhm.
And that, like, we were one of like the first or second classes that had to do these senior projects. So I had to pick a internship, and I was able to work alongside of Mary Kennedy, and she was a huge mentor for me. She was one of the moms of the girls who was above me in grade, and she just taught me how to be a journalist. I remember her also writing a book about her childhood experience and her trauma, and how writing and the arts helped her become a better journalist. And she brought me to my second assignment, which was at Goddard Park, and we were covering the yacht sailing team. I guess what is it called? I don't. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here, but we wrote about it, and she told me, I want you to close your eyes and to listen to what's going on around you. I want you to use all of your senses, because that's what makes a good writer. That's what makes a good communicator. And I just kind of fell in love with writing from that moment on. And I was able to use like what I felt that day and transform it onto paper for other people to read. And I got my first byline in the Cranston Herald, and I was so proud. My mom and I framed it, and we put it in my room, and I ended up presenting it during my senior project. I actually tripped during my senior project. I was so nervous about presenting, but I was so passionate about what I had done that I had tripped over some of the wires, and the teachers, I think, just realized I was really, really nervous. But I passed. They gave me an A because I really enjoyed doing every single session with Mary, and that kind of brought me to what I wanted to do in college. I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to be a journalist." Whether it was going to be on the Today Show or just writing, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to cover stories and be able to tell people stories, because everyone has a story, and I wanted to illuminate that. And I came home. I did not get a journalism job. I ended up working for AmeriCorps, and I was their marketing specialist. And so, from not being able to get that, dream job of, hey, this is what I went to school for, this is what I want to do, it completely transformed the path that I was going to take. And I had no idea at the time that I would become a social media and digital marketing company owner. So some of that also started in college, um, where I had a professor, Jeff Jeske. He was my journalism professor. And I actually talk about him on my website because he was such a huge influence in why I do what I do, who I am. And he just kind of saw that spark in me that I was into digital media. I wanted to be a broadcaster, and we started our own show for the Guilfordian, which was the newspaper, and it was the first time ever that Guilford had this production type studio with a green screen, and we had someone who was into video, and we didn't have a teleprompter, and we'd read off of a whiteboard, but we were making it happen. And even though we didn't have the proper tools or resources, we had this little dream, and we just kept going with it. And he totally supported the idea, and that kind of led me into becoming a web editor, which got me into doing the socials for the Guilfordian and the newspaper. And one day I remember Jeff was sitting down with me, and he had similar chairs to this, which was really funny. And he asked me, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you going to do after college? And I remember telling him, well, I don't know if I want to get into journalism. And he's like, yeah, I can kind of see that now.
Mhm.
And it was so refreshing because I think at that point I realized, hey, it's okay that I didn't follow my dream or what I thought my dream was, and it's transforming, and I can support it because other people are supporting it, and I'm going to make it whatever I need to make it. And so that's how I ended up becoming a social media manager, because I had that experience in college, which was very new for college newspapers to take on these social platforms. And then once Instagram came out and the analytics for Facebook, that just kind of opened up all these new doors for me to be able to explore. And most of it was, hey, we don't understand this, but Ashley likes to do this. So let her figure it out and kind of just play around with it. And it eventually became something that I was so passionate about that I just wanted to learn, and I would go to conferences. And I remember the first time I was looking up social media manager positions. I'm like, wait, this wasn't even a thing when I was in high school, and now it is, and now companies will pay, you know, some marketing agencies top dollar to handle all of their socials, because they know that when they're increasing that brand awareness, they're able to tap into a different demographic that they aren't going to tap into face to face. Or they're able to reach, people in California that they may not necessarily have reached if it was just a mom and pop shop here. So I just have always loved the endless possibilities of marketing, and I've loved to honestly see my own transformation and how I went from writing to journalism to now social and digital marketing, and how you can use that and use my skills to spread awareness about important issues, um, and about important products, and services.
Yeah, I think that's great advice that people could take from this, or a piece they could take from this is the ability to change and grow. Like, even though you were going to school looking at journalism, you were able to still pivot. And just because you might not have the marketing degrees or whatever, you could still learn and grow and become that. Just because you have a degree in something doesn't mean you can't do something completely different either. And honestly, even those skills that you learned translated. It's like everything you learn can translate into something else. And like, as I started kind of working on the podcast and figuring things out, I didn't realize like how much better my communication skills were going to get, and like how much better I'd be able to like kind of connect with people. But you learn that as you keep going, and like my ability to have like one-on-one conversations with people and be a little bit more like intimate in the conversation, because some people are like obviously very surface level, and like it's the high and by, or how's things going, or like, or people at a bar and just like having random conversations that mean nothing. Instead, actually peeling that layer back and like actually digging into like, okay, like, why'd you do that? Like, you went where? You got this degree, but why'd you go into that? Oh, your mom. Like, how does that feel? Like, what was that like? Like, asking the questions. Like, it's actually diving into that stuff. And I didn't go to school for communication. I didn't go to school for anything social media related. I didn't even go to school to like do podcasting or whatever with like media. I just thought that I could do it, and I did. And that's sometimes all you need, is just that kind of like blind faith, like, I'm gonna do this and I feel confident that I can do
We're
this.
jumping. That's what we're doing. We're jumping.
And it's this is kind of like like a message to like people, and even like what you mentioned too, like how social media wasn't a thing like when you were younger and stuff, and like obviously that became like a job that pays a lot of money. This even goes back to the quote that I mentioned earlier, is like, you're either with us or you kind of get left behind. Like, back then, like whether it was like the like TV, like obviously cable's kind of like dying at this point.
AIM.
Like, yeah,
AIM
AIM. I
was
used to
like
AM.
huge.
It's like anything that was the way that businesses connected with people, whether it's newspapers, TV, like ads. It's the internet now. It's social media. Like, this is how you connect with people, and like, especially if you want to reach that new audience, you have to have someone that knows how to do that. And if you can learn those skills, people, like you said, will pay top dollar for that type of stuff, because it increases revenue and it's good for their business and it's visibility, and not everyone fully understands that. And even in like your own personal life, how you market yourself, like I've always said, whether you like it or not, social media is a resume. Like you might not want to be posting everything on social media and you might be a private person on social media. That's fine. Doesn't change the fact that it's still a resume. And it's how people are going to like see you. Like if I look at someone's page right away and I scroll through their pictures and their captions and where they've gone and their music, it's going to tell me who they are really quickly, and I'm going to make a judgment off that. Unfortunately, we don't have time to read the whole book all the time. So when you're looking at people's social media, you're going to make that quick judgment of like who they are and what they're doing. And if you don't look at it as like a resume, you're going to get left behind. And if you don't want to do it, it's fine. No one's pressuring anyone to like use social media in that way, but people do. And I think understanding that puts you ahead in the game, and it's a skill that just builds upon itself. Like you might start off like we had like MySpace and Facebook and then Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, and like there's always something coming, but the skills that you learn from these platforms can translate. Like me doing a podcast and talking to people weekly help me write a book. Like skills do translate into other things, and it's your ability to kind of adapt and grow like you did with your career is huge. And I think that's like something that shouldn't be like kind of glossed over. And I think that's just like a great point. I kind of want to dive in a little bit into, I don't know if we should go into, you can tell me how, like I'm thinking about like your career and kind of like how it's like translated. Becoming a mother and then getting more into kind of like your actual business right now. Like how do you want to like tackle that? Cuz I want to kind of do it a little bit chronologically. Obviously they got to overlap in some stuff, but I don't want to like skip things.
Yeah, so it's funny because you were talking about me kind of pivoting and being able to do that. If you asked me back in high school and college, like what I envisioned my life like, I never envisioned me being a mom who owned her own business and while also taking care of kids, helping my husband with his businesses. I just always thought like I was going to be in the corporate world, like that was what I was going to do. I was going to be a boss lady, and that was kind of the vision that I had. Now, as I've continued to grow and learn, I realize, wait, there's other ways to be a boss lady. You can be your own boss lady. And that's something that like I know my family like has always really reminded me of is, hey, you do have this light in you and like let it shine because when you do, like that's when you will make the change that you want to see in the world. And being a mom was such a learning curve in itself. So trying to find myself and like where I fit in to the world as a career woman, but then also as like a human being and as a wife and as a mom, like those are just all very complicated emotions to deal with. So I think that it takes a lot of balance to be able to do that. I do not always find that balance. I try my best every single day and I equate it to I'm holding a pile of plates on this hand. I'm holding a pile on this hand, and it's constantly teeter-tottering. Some days I might be able to hold 10 plates on this one and only 3 on this one, and it might switch the next day. But I think just constantly trying to find that balance is really what keeps me going. Because otherwise, I'm up until 2 o'clock in the morning creating content for my clients, or I'm sitting at the playground and I'm on my phone and my kid's like, "Mommy, like why are you on your phone?" Or my husband's like, "Just take a break." And sometimes you just need that reminder. So if you had asked me if that's what I envisioned myself like, as a career woman, I would have said, "No, no, absolutely not." But it just kind of happened that way, and it was so beautiful and it feels so right. And there are certain days where I like threaten my family. I'm like, I'm going back to the corporate world. But like, there's nothing that I wouldn't give than to go and see my daughter's, kindergarten graduation, or we went to like preschool concerts. And I was able to do that because I make my own schedule. I'm my own boss and I can pick the clients who I want to pick. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing, and it's so freeing. And a part of that is when I first started out with this, my husband said, "The sky's the limit. Like, what do you have to lose? Like, why not? Like, you can start your own business. How many other people have done it? And I think I was just so scared to take that leap, mainly because, hey, what if you fail? But even if you fail, you can still get back up again and keep trying. And I think that that's just a really important lesson that people should follow in life is, yes, things get crazy. You're going to try to find that balance, and it's not always going to work out. But if you stay true to yourself, if you like search within and really dig deep, like everything's going to work out.
Yeah, and I really love the sentiment of balance. Like I'm finding what that balance is in, like you said, it's never always going to be exactly balanced. Like things are going to happen that are going to make you feel sad, that make you feel happy. And like there's a part of the book, I guess spoiler for people, is like the last chapter is loss. And I do that as kind of like a way to kind of remind you like it's not all supposed to be happy. And I think that's why it's meaningful and that's why it's a pillar in the book. And it's like the last chapter. It's like I go through all these other ones that are like pretty positive for the most part. And you'd be like, yeah, I would agree with most of these. And then you get to loss. And I talked last week about it with my friend Mason that came on the podcast, and he really highlighted how that meant a lot to him and how I highlight whether it's lost, like I've lost friends my age at young ages, like even like right out of high school, tragic accidents or grandparents or aunts, uncles. And then a few years ago I lost my family dog of 14 years, and like it felt like I lost like a family member. Like it was like one of the craziest emotions that I've ever felt. Like I literally made a whole episode called "The Dog's Love," talking about like the value and importance of like having that. And like, I mean, it. My dog grew up with me my entire life. Like it was, I think I was like maybe like 10 or 11 or something when we first got her, and like through everything in like graduating college, moving to Texas, coming back, starting a pot, like all of it, and the power of like loving something so much and losing it is a key aspect of life, and it reminds us like there's going to be really high ups and really low lows, and that's why like you aim for balance, but it's gonna teeter back and forth, and it's a ping ponging thing. And I really resonate with that because like throughout my life I always strive, I'm always like I'm very big on balance. I want balance in my life, I'm looking for that, trying to find ways where I'm having fun going to concerts or sporting events or doing things with friends or my girlfriend or family, and like having like my job and then doing the podcast, like finding what works for me. And I'd say the last several years, I feel like I've really been in that place where like I'm really like happy with the way things are. Like, and this is where we were kind of talking about like normalizing the nine to five aspect. And I was talking about that a little bit, is because a lot for me, like that funds a lot of the stuff that I do. And for me right now, like having health insurance, having a 401k, like that stuff is important to me. And like I got like obviously side investments that I have privately, but like I think it's important for me to have that aspect and talk about that, because that stuff that I get from my 9 to 5 goes into this to have my passion, to hang out with my friends or go do these different things, to go hike a mountain on a weekend and like have that experience. And letting people know like you can create that balance however you want, and like obviously you created the business and you create that balance for yourself, and like there's not one like cookie cutter thing that's going to like create a cookie that you want. Like there's different ones, there's plenty of different ones, and I think understanding that and learning that for yourself is super important because people forget that, and like they want to chase all the highs. They want to be, some people want to be rich, famous, like successful, and it's like life is so complex that as soon as you start planning for that stuff, something else is going to completely derail that and change how you're going to get there.
And the thing too, what you talked about loss is, if you didn't have those losses, I don't think that you'd be able to appreciate the wins. And I think it kind of goes back to my childhood. If I didn't have that, I guess, rough time, or like, the humps, I wouldn't have appreciated or been able to appreciate the life that I have now. If I didn't go through working 3 jobs in college, I wouldn't appreciate being able to have that flexibility of my own schedule. Um, when you're at the job and you're working that 9 to 5, you're like, oh man, this may suck, but you have this certain appreciation because hey, this is all going to be worth it because this is, you know, getting me to my goal or getting me to something that is going to fill in that loss. Um,
And also having patience too, like understanding that, like, sure, I'd be working a 9 to 5 right now and I'm working on this podcast, but in year 7, 8, 9, 10 of this, maybe that's when it goes. And like understanding that like just showing up every day is gonna pay off. Like every time that I do a podcast and post it and get it out there and make all the clips, but I'm like, I really don't want to do this. Like it pays off. And like not everyone's gonna tell you that they had a great experience in the podcast or that their mom loved it or like their friends loved it. Like every once in a while I get people that say that and all that, and that's great when they do that. But like you don't know how many lives you're actually touching and affecting when you're doing something like this, and you just got to believe that you are, and that belief in like yourself is what's going to carry you to keep doing the thing, because so many people quit, like people just give up like way too early, and it's kind of upsetting when you see someone striving and chasing their passion. You're like, "Yeah, that's awesome," because you know how hard it is to do that, and then to see people just, like, quit, it's like, you don't even know what coulda happened if you just went that extra day, like, or that extra month, like, you might have just made it, because like, we all have that ability to create or have that talent within us, but sometimes that belief in ourselves can, like, start to fade away when you don't see the results, and I think when you're aligned with your actual passion to do something, that's when things are gonna actually work out a little bit better for you because you're not doing it to make X number of money or like X number of dollars or get X number of followers. It's because you purely love to do the thing.
and that's where the balance comes in because you have to continue that balance of, hey, I love what I'm doing, but is it supplying what I love, or like, can I actually do it? Can I make the money to actually make this happen? Um, and sometimes it's, hey, I'm doing this job, I'm making X amount. This is like more than I ever thought, but wow, it's straining me. And I'm actually like no, the least happy that I've ever been in my life. So I think finding that balance and then trying to just sort it out and I don't even know how to explain it. I think it just sorts itself out. I think that sometimes when you just try too hard and try to push something like a circle in like a square box, it's just not going to happen. So if you just let it flow, if you let things go, eventually like things will work themselves out. And yeah, you can like wiggle that knot a little bit, but sometimes you just need to let things settle down and kind of start over again. And that's okay. Like it's okay to quit. And I think that people are so afraid of that failure and that's why they don't go ahead and like try to be an entrepreneur or like just continue and that quitting is essentially stopping them from fulfilling their full potential, but they also don't realize that the balance in that is by them quitting, that could also cause them to say, "Hey, let me take a step back. Like this could actually be a really good thing. It could turn out to be great." So like looking into the positive of things. That's something that I struggle with, like with my businesses. So obviously, like trying to balance the family life and work life is extremely difficult. It's unconventional, and sometimes I can't get to my clients or answer their emails right away because I'm being a mom, I'm being a wife. And if a client doesn't like that, then that's okay. And I need to do what's best for me and what's best for my family and my own mental health. And I may think, oh, you know what if they drop me or maybe they're not going to want to continue their contract with me. But then the other part of that is, you know what, if that happens, maybe I'll have more time to spend with my family, or maybe it will be better on my mental health. So again, like going back to that balance and just trying to find it. It's difficult, almost impossible most days. But I think that if you like keep it in the back of your mind and continuously keep going back there, um, eventually it just kind of comes second nature.
Yeah, and sometimes that step back isn't even a step back. Sometimes it's time just to reflect and then take 3 steps forward.
Mhm.
And
Rest and refocus.
yeah, yeah, and it's so important to have those mental health breaks and, like, sometimes the end of the years, during my podcast, like, that December timeframe, I'll take, like, a few weeks off just because, like, I'm cranking episodes all year long, and, um, I need that break personally, just, like, to not have to, like, get the equipment set up and to mentally prepare to have like an actual like deep conversation with someone and like go through the motions of editing and posting and like I'm posting all week and working on that aspect of social media with the content. Sometimes I need that. And I definitely encourage people to take that mental health break because I think it's good for you and it's super important. I did want to ask, um, I don't know how to like completely phrase this, but like, how do you manage? Obviously, your wife, you're a mother, you're an entrepreneur. Like, how do you balance or create like time for you? Like, how do you manage all these things going on and like keep your sanity for like who you are as a person? Because like obviously, as we get older and
That's a
like
really good question.
yeah, because I think about all the stuff that we have going on. We have relationships, and obviously you have children, and I hope to have kids one day. And like, how do you still be you with all that going on?
So it's really hard. For a while I didn't do that and it caught up with me and it just kind of forced me to be like, "Hey, something's off with you. What's going on?" And I've been in therapy for many years. I'm a huge supporter of therapy. And my therapist asked me that same question, "What are you doing postpartum to do something for you?" And I said, "Well, right now it's just showering. I'm just able to shower." And that is what I would do. And then gradually it became, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go get my nails done, or I'm gonna go for a hike, or I'm gonna watch a sunset, or I'm gonna go and get a chai." And sometimes it's like those small little things that contribute to, hey, you're doing something for yourself. Um, a lot of times it's mom guilt will come in the way. So even if it's me like going to the store to drive and listen to like the music that I want to listen to because now I'm being told to listen that they want the music that they want to listen to. So that's like a whole different thing that we're going through. But just doing that, just going to the store to pick up stuff that is going to benefit my family, like you have mom guilt over that and you're like, "Oh man, like is my husband okay at home like with the kids? Like because does he need a mental break? Because I'm really breaking down right now, so I can only imagine what he feels." So I think like really just checking in like with yourself is super important. Getting that extra help. I didn't even realize that I wasn't doing anything for myself until my therapist was like, "Yeah, you need to do something for yourself because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sustain being human and you need to be able to have some type of joy." So even as a couple, like we have done like date nights. That's something like when you do have kids, like definitely make sure you put date nights into the calendar. And even, hey, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk. Like that's my thing. I'm going to bring the dogs out for a walk and it's a chore, but it's my time to mentally decompress just to not hear music of screaming kids and toys being thrown all over the place. So it like I said, it's hard to balance that out. I don't know if I do a good job some days. Other days I'm like super mom. I'm like, wow, I went to this meeting, I did that, I went grocery shopping, and I made dinner for the family. Like this is a win. Kids are in bed by 8. But oh man, now I have to create like a proposal for a new client. And sometimes it does take the joy out of the art and out of what I love doing. So that is also a struggle to deal with. But I think that if you do what you love, if you are who you love, and you never like stop kind of trugging along, um, I think that's when things start to like click and really like work out. And I truly believe that because there are so many days where I put my head on the pillow and I'm like, I don't know how we just got through that day, but we did it and it always happens. And even like when something chaos is happening, I'm like, I don't know how we're going to get through this. But we always somehow manage to get through it. And it's because you find that like inner like charge or inner self, like that boost. And once you do that, I think like the possibilities are endless, and you can kind of just keep balanced and keep centered and continue being able to give what you love to people, because if you're not happy, if you don't take time for yourself, then no one's going to be happy around you.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I think what you said there about loving yourself and like kind of creating that time for yourself is so important, because I think a lot of the time we lose ourselves as we go through life, whether it's in our jobs, our families, or our passions, even too. People can lose themselves in that. But separating yourself, and like we've talked about, taking that step back is like super important to kind of reflect and kind of analyze where you want to go too, because sometimes you need that time to step back. Like, all right, maybe I need to change something. I don't even know, because you haven't taken that step back. But I think that was like a really important question for me to ask, because like I think people need to understand that too. Like, you have a whole family, you have a whole business, you have
And
a
two
whole marriage,
dogs.
and it's like you got a lot going on.
Yeah.
And to create that time for yourself, I mean, me personally, I think it's super important to like to do that, whether it's in just like it's you and your partner, or what, like you have kids, like having that time to like be you, because like we get lost in being everything for everybody, that sometimes we do forget to like take care of ourselves, because you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others sometimes? And like obviously sometimes you still have to power through and get things done, because life is real. um and I think for me, the belief of like it's always just going to work out. Like you've survived 100 out of 100 of the worst days of your life, and you keep going. And obviously, maybe one day it's gonna be the worst, and you don't survive that. And hopefully, knock on wood, you make it. But like you always make it through those bad days, or that bad uh, day at work, or like maybe your kids are having a horrible day and like it puts you in a bad mood and it's the worst day ever.
They
Like
cut their hair and bit a kid in school.
like you're you're gonna make it. And like that belief in whether you have religion or spirituality or whatever it is, that higher like feeling or emotion or state of energy, like that belief that something's gonna carry you. Like I always say, like I'm just spiritual. Not like I align myself with any specific religion, but I've been saying I'm an omnist lately. It's like a believer of like you believe a little bit of truth in every religion.
I
And
like that.
yeah, I found it recently on TikTok. I was like, that actually kind of resonates with me. Like, cause
Mhm.
like I love I've had people on the podcast that are Hindu, and like people that are Christians, and like all these different like beliefs, just regular spirituality people. And um, I love the concept of all these different faiths, and like the faith and the belief in something, and like where these people's morals align on these different religions. And I think having that belief that things are going to work out is just so powerful, and it carries you through a lot of those bad days and those struggles. And um, for me, that's always kind of resonated. It really was resonating with what you were saying.
I think it's your community too. Like that's something I wanted to like touch upon, like with socials um and how not only does that help my business, but it also helps me as a mom, as an individual. I did not realize how many Facebook groups there are out there for different types of moms that are dealing with, kids with ADHD, or moms who are looking to plan their baby showers. And we have a community group called Connect. And so
I'm in there.
so I get in trouble for being on Con
Yeah.
Connect. So it's one of those things where someone posts about, hey, do you have like the school lunch, or do you know when this event is? It's also a place for me to post about my business. So not only is socials like a revenue for me, but it's also such a important part of my mental health. Sometimes you have to take a break from it, as we all know. It can consume you, but then other times you can use it as a resource. And I've loved being able to experience that and connect with these different community groups that make me feel a part of something, especially in times when sometimes your life is crazy and you don't feel like you're a part of anything, or that you can be a part of anything because things are so chaotic. So that's definitely something that I appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. And we're getting towards that back end of the conversation, so I want to focus a little bit on the business before I get to like last question, all that other stuff. But how have you been able to kind of grow the business on social media, and also where do you see the business going in the next year, few years, and all that?
Yeah, another great question. So, how I've been able to grow it is word of mouth, referrals, 100%. That is one of the best sources of marketing, and I've seen it time and time again, corporate all the way down to mom and pop shops. I remember having one of my first clients reach out to me, and she was from Texas. She was a boutique. I said, "How did you find me?" And she said, "Oh, through the social media marketing manager hashtag." And I said, "Wow, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing." And it was such a win for me because a lot of times in this business, clients want to see, okay, I'm paying you X amount and this is how much I'm going to make off of that. That doesn't necessarily always happen. You're not going to be able to tie, hey, this social post made me X amount of revenue because one, it's so hard to track. You have no idea if people are finding you through hashtags or if they see your post or maybe if someone shared a post. There's just not a really good system in place right now to be able to track that other than someone coming in and saying, "Hey, how did you find out about us?" "Oh, through social media or through so and so." And so I don't do a good enough job of marketing myself on social media just because I am still trying to manage being a mom. But in 5 years, when both of my girls are in school full time, I hope to have more accounts. I hope to be able to grow my business because even though I'm up sometimes super late doing it, I love doing it. And by the time I put my head on that pillow, I'm like, I feel so accomplished. Like, wow, I was able to create so many things. But there's also that balance because sometimes you don't want to grow too fast because it one puts a lot of pressure on me to fully commit to accounts and to fully be able to creatively think strategically for these companies' marketing goals. And you have to like put these hats on and off. So I put my mom hat on, but even though I have my mom hat on, I'm also thinking about so and so's marketing plan. And then, I saw a sign while I'm driving the kids to softball practice and it said, "Oh, that's going to make a great social campaign." Or, I'll see something and hear something that someone says, and I say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to use that for my social campaign." So one, I want to grow and I have that urge to grow, but at the same time, where my life is right now, I can't be taking on 10, 20 accounts while raising two little girls who need me. So hopefully in 5 years, if I come back again, I'll say, "Hey, you know what? My kids are both in school, and I'm being that boss lady. I can't stop the calls." But right now, I do like that freedom of being very selective with my accounts and saying, "Hey, this is going to take a lot of time mentally and emotionally, and so, do I want to focus on this account? Is this account going to be beneficial for my family dynamic?" And sometimes it's not. And that's okay. I had a client one time calling me during bath time, and I had to tell them, like, "Hey, I really want to help you out right now, but I'm doing bath time. So let me just put my kids to bed for 8 o'clock and I will give you a call." So I like being able to work with clients who also are family people. I have one client and she's an attorney. And one of the reasons why I took her on knowing that, I had kind of more, not more accounts than I could handle, but enough to the max where I probably didn't need to take on anymore. But I took her on because she was a mom, because she was a family woman, and she understood the work life balance of, "Hey, you know what? I'm not going to answer your email right away because I'm dealing with my family, X, Y, and Z, and that can wait." Or, "Hey, kids, you can wait because this is an emergency and a fire that I need to put out right now." So yeah, I think that growing my business, I could definitely do better at, especially promoting myself. That's one thing I post on my personal social media. So I've kind of used that as my marketing platform where my business social media hasn't really been my main focus because I can't grow yet to that point. And so that's definitely frustrating many days because I want to grow and I'm striving to grow, but then I have to take a step back and say, can you grow right now? But there'll be a time for that and I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
I'll
and
be ready
it
for it.
ties back into like the whole thing we've talked about, balance, getting back to that and understanding what works for you right now. And like I think you're building kind of like a great place to jump off as they get older, where you could like put in more time into it, and like that is like the hope. And maybe it changes, maybe it doesn't, but like you're creating and learning all these tools that are going to help you with the business. And I think that's important, that you're just starting, you're doing it, you're getting after it, and like you're not like, oh, I'll wait till they're older to start. No, you're doing it now. And I think that's like a good message for people, and like for anything, whether like they're starting fresh in their careers, or right out of high school or college or whatever, or they have a family. Like if you have this idea or business or passion that you want to start, like research and start it. Like you just got to start somewhere. Like it took me years before I wanted to like actually write the book, like, but then I started it. And then it's like that power of starting really carries you through things. And it, you don't, you'll be surprised at how much you can accomplish when you just start something. And the excitement of starting it will carry you, but creating a schedule, creating how you're going to do it, understanding your actual lives and like what could happen, and like creating time for yourself and time for your business and time for your work, carving that time out specifically for that is super important, because it's going to help you in the long run to sustain that. I think it's super important, especially when you're doing social media stuff, to have that, because you'll burn out quickly if you don't do that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I've been burnt out, like I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I'm so balanced and I have it all figured out. Absolutely not. Like I've been burnt out. I've sat there and cried saying, I can't do this. Like, what am I doing? I'm not built for this. But when you have that support and that love, and that drive, like there's also the part of I am a mother now and I have two young girls who are looking up to me and I want them to look up to me and say, wow, like my mom, she runs her own business and she's juggling a million things. And even though they may not understand it or appreciate it right now, I hope that they look back one day and say, wow, she did this all for us and I appreciate that. And I hope to do the same for my family one day.
yeah, and I think that's a good message to put out there, and I think they will receive that. It's a same idea when I talk on this podcast. If I ever have children, and I would like to, like, they get to look at this, and one, they get to see what their dad would be like at, I think I started this when I was like 24, like around 24.
That could be
Like,
dangerous.
yeah, it could be, it could be. It could bite me in the ass when we're looking back on this, but they get to see that. And I hope when I show them the book or the podcast or whatever, it's the concept, like you could do whatever you want. Like you can create stuff too. Like it doesn't have to, you don't have to go the same path that everyone does. Like, and if you do, you still can create while doing that. And I think that's the kind of message that I want to put out there. And I think you're doing the same with that. Starting to bring us home, I do have that last question about passions, but I always like to give the guest like kind of like a last word in case we missed anything. But if it's related to the passions, probably just wait. But in case we missed anything or you wanted to say anything, and I'll let you plug at the end. So not that. But is there anything that we might have missed that you wanted to say before we get to that last question? If there's nothing, it's
No,
fine. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
because we definitely covered a
We
lot of good
did,
stuff, and
yeah.
I was trying to like make sure that we were hitting on everything as we were getting through this. So Ashley, what would your advice be for someone who wants to pursue their passion?
Oh, for someone who wants to pursue their passions, my advice would be don't let anything stand in your way, no matter what it is. No matter what obstacle you go through, just keep pushing along. And I know it's kind of cliche and it's a little along the lines of just do it. But this isn't just do it. This is push whatever is in your way out of your way and get over those obstacles because it may be tough. You may be going through the mud some days. It may be raining and pouring and snowing all at the same time. But when you're standing in a place where you say, hey, I got from here to there and I didn't think that I could do it, but I did it. and now it feels so good. Um, I think that just kind of keeps pushing you along to say, hey, well, you know what? Now this is the next goal. And I think there was definitely a part in my life where I was just so content. And I said, you know what? Well, what do I want to do? Like, where do I want to go? And, how much money do I want to make? And sometimes you need to just take a step back and be like, well, am I happy with what I'm doing? And sometimes no matter like how much money you're making, um, where you are in your life, if you're not happy with what you're doing, if you're not fulfilling that soul and that drive, then you're not going to be happy, and you're not gonna feel happy. You're not going to have good days. So it all your mental health in your entire life all surrounds with, and it focuses on what you feel and what makes you happy. So do what makes you happy, and don't let anything stand in your way, because take it from someone who had a lot of obstacles in her course, and sometimes I felt like I wasn't going to get over them, and that I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But again, I was able to reset. I was able to rest. I was able to release in order to create new opportunities within myself and within my life. And I think if you do that, if you try to hold on to that balance, then I think no matter who you are and what you go through, you will get there.
I think that's fantastic advice for people, and I think that's a great way to wrap the podcast. Ashley, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you for coming on here and being as vulnerable as you were, and like that really validates like the platform, and having people like yourself come do that really means a lot to me. And just thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
If you want to look into this camera, you can plug your stuff and where the people can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me at mama.crossman on Instagram. And if you need any help with socials or any digital marketing media, follow me or reach out to me at any marketing solutions.
Perfect. And for you guys, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check it out, thecarolconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Podcast, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you want to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection, or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. We'll set that up. As well as plugging the 5 pillars of creating a meaningful life. You could buy it on Amazon. And if you buy it, please write the review and submit it on Amazon. It goes a long way in the algorithm. So, till next time, guys. Peace.